Stay tuned now for the Racing for Heroes radio show with host Brett Morash on 1460 WVOX.
Hey, Racing for Heroes fans, it's Brett Morash. It is Friday, the 17th of September, and it is kind of a gloomy day outside here in New Rochelle, New York, but hopefully it's sunny and dry where you are so you can get out on the road and drive fast. Our first guest today is Matt Mohawk Denny, former U.S. Marine, and he is out there helping veterans every day, and he is working for the Colin Garrett Racing team, supporting Colin's 1111 Veteran Project, and that opportunity is just great because Mohawk is out there acting as an advocate for the veteran community and really kind of meeting folks. So we're just super excited about that. So Matt, you're on the line.
I'm here. How's it going, Brett?
I'm doing awesome. How was your day?
It's fantastic. My wife and I, we got a cabin out in the middle of Virginia, and we're just enjoying the day.
Oh, yeah. Hopefully the weather's better there than up here. We're getting some
beautiful.
we're getting some of the tropical storm stuff. But so you have a Be Awesome campaign. I mean, I like to say Be Awesome, but you use it. I mean, that's your battle cry.
It is, yeah. Be Awesome. So the word awesome means a lot to my family, and my wife's late sister had about a 14-year battle with cancer.
Oh, wow.
And multiple different cancers. And through that, awesome was her whole mantra. And happiness in general was. She was always very positive. Through all of it, she started multiple foundations that across reaching cancer survivors across the country. And awesome was always at the core of that. And so after she passed, and while she was still alive, she had what was called the I Am Awesome Challenge. And she would go to restaurants, and instead of giving her name at a restaurant, she would say, instead of like, my name is Ginger, they say, my name is I Am Awesome. And then when the server would call out, hello, I have an order for I Am Awesome, kind of awkwardly, she would scream, yes, you are awesome. And
I like that.
And it was super fun. And so we really adapted that. And I do a lot of video and podcasting and things.
Sure.
And content development. And I started just using awesome and Be Awesome, and usually followed on with be the reason someone has an awesome day.
That's good. I like that.
You have the power to impact somebody's day.
No, and you got to pay it forward, right? I mean, I think if you start off your day and you want to be a curmudgeon, it's not going to make anyone else's life better. Certainly not yours. But if you can be out there and helping other folks, I think that's fantastic.
Exactly. So that's kind of how, and then Be Awesome even grew even more when my wife made a stamp for our 10-year anniversary last year. Because that's what spouses get each other, a stamp of your face, right? and she put Be Awesome across the top of that, and the move that I always make on video, and then it just like blew up. She didn't know the monster she was creating.
Yeah.
And that's the stamp that eventually ended up on Colin Garrett's car 2 weeks ago at Darlington.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. Well, let's talk about that. Well, first of all, wait, let's talk about Darlington in a second. I want to hear about what you did in the military. So you were a Marine, but there's lots of different types of Marines out there. What did you do?
There is. So I was what the Marine Corps called a combat correspondent. Mm-hmm. And what that really means is a photojournalist.
Right.
And so I was in the photojournalism, the broadcasting space, the public affairs world, and what it meant is the junior ranks is going out, working with different Marines organizations, capturing photo content, making stories about it, doing videos about it, etc., which was really cool because unlike most Marines and anyone in the military, you kind of get tunneled into your field, and this is what you're doing. What I really enjoyed is it was my job to highlight everybody else's job.
Sure.
And so I got to see an entire Marine Corps, not just one thing that I did every day, which I really enjoyed.
Yeah. Now, were you combat camera too? Like where you were taking pictures of kind of the combat camera type world?
Yeah. So now in today's world, as of 2 years ago, they're the same thing. At my time, they were two different job fields, but we worked very closely together. But Gotcha. It was same type of thing though. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I remember, in fact, earlier today, I was having a conversation with a former Army combat camera guy. And then last week we had Adrian Brammer on, who was Air Force side of that. And I just know that, the guy I served with out in East Africa, he was going through some troubles, family wise. And, rather than go home, he actually like recycled and ended up in Afghanistan for a year in East Africa, which was not good for his mental health, because now he was doing the combat camera role, taking pictures of the aftermath of combat action, which was pretty serious. So yeah, he's not doing well now. But he's retired as a photographer's mate.
Wow.
But yeah, no, I'm sure you can appreciate that, though. I mean, it's a serious job, and a lot of people don't realize what that does.
It is. It puts you in people think, oh, you're just on the sidelines, you're out. But like I lost a friend in 2010. His anniversary is actually coming up in the end of September. Ralph Fabry, and he was in Afghanistan as a combat cameraman, and he was killed in a firefight. And so you can be right in the thick of it.
Oh, for sure. But and again, Mohawk, I know that all of us have friends that were killed in combat, and I think the best thing we can always do is really, embrace their memory and think of the good things about those folks. But let's shift gears to Darlington. So a lot of people who are listening don't know that your face was on the side of the Colin Garrett, I think it was 26 car Toyota Sam Hunt Racing car, but why? What's going on?
So my wife and I have been on this journey this year, and really targeting some not new, but really able to kind of shift our life from like going through day to day and really working towards our passions. And one of those is really giving back more to vets. And I've been working as a civilian for the Navy for the last 9 years after I left the Marine Corps. And so I still was giving back in a way, but we've wanted to create these projects. And we kind of threw out this joke of an idea of like traveling around the country, living in an RV, and going from there. And Colin Garrett's team reached out when the 7 Ways of Kevin Bacon, someone heard about it that knew someone, and they said, well, hey, we hear you and your wife, a military couple, kind of want to travel the country as your current journey. I said, yeah, well, we want to send a military couple out on the road over the next couple of years, working with vets, gathering stories, developing a YouTube series, and really connecting them to all the resources that exist. And we have this 1111 Veteran Project. And for me and my wife, we're like, oh, this could be perfect. Maybe it's one of those things where we just started putting it out in the universe, and the universe heard us. And so as we're talking, they're like, okay, so to kick this off, we want to help you launch this campaign. And what we're going to do is we're going to give you a sponsor reached out and said, we're going to give you the car. Well, he said, give us the hood. I was like, okay, they'll probably put my face on like this small sticker on the hood. And it'll be awesome. It'll be great. And for clarification for everyone that's listening, 5 weeks ago, I could barely spell NASCAR. Like I know nothing about the race world. And so it's a whole new world to us in general. And so we get invited to the pits, doing all this crazy stuff. And now my face is going to be on a car. And I'm like, what the heck is going on? And that
picture of your face was like 10 times larger than your head. So
yeah, I ended up being on the entire hood, on the side panels, both sides. They did a whole patriotic theme on the paint scheme. And because I already had the Be Awesome stamp that my wife gave me, that's what became the whole Be Awesome campaign.
Oh, neat. Yeah.
For getting us on the road, bringing access, working with Racing for Heroes, working with the Rosie Network and others to get connected to all these great resources exist. Because unfortunately, there's so many resources out there, but even as a Marine, I don't know they all exist.
Yeah, for sure.
When my wife and I were going through what we did, we didn't know the things that she had access to. So we just want to help bring awareness to it.
And I think at the end of the day, I mean, when I think of what Colin Garrett and his team are doing, where they're supporting folks like you and me and the Racing for Heroes team, I mean, I give them a lot of credit.
Yeah, definitely. And that's so it kind of happened. And me being on the car, we kicked off this crowdfunding campaign that we have going on right now at 1111vets.com. And it's just to get this bus or RV thing on the road. And it might be, it's kind of an experiment. Yeah. We've talked to you guys a little bit. We've talked to the Rosie Network and other organizations like, well, that's what we want to do. We're like, well, great. Let's figure out how this works together. And then in 5 years, we got 40 of these buses out there connecting even more.
Yeah. Well, listen, I'm sure Colin and the 1111 Veteran Project, they'd be super happy to do that in the future. So I just can't, thank them enough for all, because they do all that work for us for pro bono. And, They've been doing that for 3 years. And, when they're out there trying to get someone like you out there at the tip of the spear, promoting veteran businesses and access to resources, to help military families. I mean, that's what it's all about.
It is. It really is. And that's what I really love about partnering with Colin and his team, and even Sam Hunt Racing, is Colin has 2 active duty brothers in the military, as
That's
you
right.
know.
Yeah.
Their family, every generation has served since Revolutionary War. So they have this deep passion for connecting to vets, their spouses.
For sure.
And that's what I love about them.
For sure. Well, we're coming into kind of the last minute of this segment. Tell us, where should people go if they want to learn a little more about what you're doing?
Yeah, so they can go to mohawkmattdenny.com, and still they will be able to see the story of the kind of one I just explained. Plus, they'll be able to find the crowdfunding campaign there, and then everyone can find me on social media at Mohawk Matt Denny on every single platform.
All right.
LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, it's everywhere.
Gotcha. And why Mohawk?
So I have a giant mohawk on top of my head, and I became Mohawk Matt as part of my kind of online personality the last few years, the stuff I've been doing with the DoD. So it's become my call sign is Mohawk Matt.
Gotcha. And it's more like a Mohawk from like the 82nd Airborne jumping out of airplanes at Normandy than like the Warriors, the 1970s movie about New York, right?
Yeah, it is. It's got some military roots. For me, it's also got some family roots. I got Aztec blood in me.
There you go.
So my grandma loves seeing me in a mohawk, which is funny for a grandma to like. So
well, and listen, if you ever jump out of a plane, you can just yell "Be awesome" as you're going out the door. See,
exactly.
You have your own battle cry. All right. Well, Matt, thanks so much for your time. I appreciate all you do, and I appreciate all that Colin and his family are doing for all of us. So thanks so much.
Hey, thanks, Brett. And thanks for helping us share the message. Appreciate it.
All right, you bet, brother. All right, well, thanks again there to Matt Denny. We're going to be going into our next guest, who is James Gordon. He is a longtime friend of Racing for Heroes, but James is a former New Zealand Army infantry officer who served some time ago, and then has been a contractor on and off again overseas, doing the work. What James is on today to discuss is really kind of the situation going on in Afghanistan and what you can do to help us and James help the Afghanis that are fighting back against the Taliban tyranny. So, James, I heard you on the line.
Hey, Brett, how you doing? Thanks for having me on.
No, thanks. I know that you were driving back north, so hopefully you got a chance to pull over and you're in a nice, quiet part of the drive between Danville land and up north.
Yeah, no problem. I figured I'd be safe with this thing. It's important to get this message out. So again, thanks for giving me the opportunity, and I'm all yours. Ask away.
Yeah, no, listen, and I appreciate that, because I think that the news cycle for what it is, they don't have a lot of media in country right now, so I don't think the word is really getting out, or it's absolutely controlled by, let's say, the Taliban, as far as the messaging goes. But there's actually a lot of resistance in the country that's there either below the wave tops or actively fighting back, isn't there?
Yeah, the largest group that was came out of the Northern Alliance that became the National Resistance, that has by and large fractured right now, and the elements that are in country are still fighting in smaller pockets.
Mm-hmm.
Resistance does continue across the country. Communication is incredibly difficult. The government has shut down most of the cell phone networks. There was a report this morning of an individual in the Panjshir Valley who was killed for selling 20 SIM cards.
Wow.
So the atrocities continue. The Taliban is still the Taliban of old. They didn't suddenly have an awakening. They didn't become new actors. They also opened the door for the likes of the Haqqani network to really play a big role. And things are not looking good in Afghanistan, and the folks that we do need to help are still out there.
Yeah, so let's, that's a lot to unpack, but let's talk about sort of, when I always think about the reason we went into Afghanistan in the first place was to make sure that the Al-Qaeda didn't have a base area in which to do training and, reorganize and that sort of thing. Do you think the Taliban have learned that lesson, that if they allow that to happen, the U.S. is just going to come back in? I mean, what do you think?
Well, they tell us that they're not going to allow that to happen, and then in the very same breath, they turn around and tell the Kashmiris that they will provide them with support against the Indians. They tell the Palestinians they'll provide them with support against the Israelis.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same story once again, and they will continue to provide a safe haven for the people who think the same way that they do.
Yeah, and I think that that's, a critical thing here is that the having the Taliban in charge, and let's say nominally the stability that brings in its own kind of diabolical way, allows for those organizations to actually have a foothold in a place that they're somewhat protected. So, I mean, we're kind of, like you said, we're back to where, the Taliban of old is here again.
Yeah, that's correct. And if I can paraphrase, I believe it was Churchill saying that, feeding a crocodile because he'll eat you last is not exactly the best idea. That's one of the issues we face at the moment is, the Taliban wants us to give them money. They want us to free up the funding. They want to do all of these things, and they'll set the circumstances for it because once they have the money, they're free to do what they want to. What the situation on the ground, unfortunately, is that the people who actually need our help are not the ones that the Taliban are going to help in turn.
Well, and that's part of the problem, right? Because I think that the U.S. had its experience where everyone was kind of aware of it in Somalia back in the 92 to 94 time frame. When I was there, where you had food being used as a weapon, and even though there was a flow of USAID or United Nations foodstuffs coming in, it was really being controlled by the warlord factions. And I'm afraid that we're going to see that very similar in Afghanistan under the Taliban rule.
Definitely, and I think that that's a very astute observation. You will have that situation repeated. The UN is currently in discussion with the Taliban about how they can get aid into the country. Well, the Taliban is going to control the distribution of that aid, and there's going to be a further humanitarian crisis developing in Afghanistan. We're about to see the onset of winter. That's going to slow down the fighting activity, but it's also going to mean that more and more people become isolated. There are a significant number of internally displaced people within Afghanistan, and there continues to be a flow of people trying to flee the country because they do not want to live under the yoke of the Taliban.
Yes.
The important thing for folks to remember, the median age of women in Afghanistan is 19 and a half years. They did not live under Taliban rule. And the Taliban have got no concerns about trampling on women's rights. And they've provided evidence of that every single day. They do not care about minorities either. They will continue to trample on those minorities. We saw the National Resistance Front attempt to open a dialogue with the Taliban and said, we'll stop fighting if you guys will at least allow us proportional representation within the government. The Taliban refused to do that. So that situation will continue, and it will continue to degrade. And there are plenty of people out there who need our help. And it can be as basic as providing food and shelter. Communications is a big problem as well. And we have to do something about making sure that the message coming out of Afghanistan is one that covers both ends of the spectrum. At the moment, it's all controlled by the Taliban, and they allow the news they want to leave the country.
Yeah, and I think you're right, though, about the communications piece. And I was talking to a former college professor of mine the other day, and she was asking me about it had to do with Blackbeard the pirate and like kind of the democracy of that. And I was like, yeah, but that's one little area, right? And in order to do the large range operations you need to do, in that case, you had to have a structure like the Royal Navy, but you also had the bureaucratic kind of nature of that. But one of those things that they had was kind of communications, right? And because in order for them to do combined operations or coordinate operations against the Taliban, you really have to enable that piece of the puzzle, right?
Correct. And I think what most people lose sight of, and unfortunately we have a very fickle news cycle. What people lose sight of is that the Taliban is not universally accepted around Afghanistan. Yes, there are pockets that are pro-Taliban. Yes, there are pockets that are very much in that line of thinking. But there's a lot of the country that doesn't wish to live like that. And, unfortunately, we're in the position where it appears that people who believe in equal rights for minorities, believe in women's rights, and they would just like to have the ability to live with some degree of self-determination.
Yeah.
we've kind of left them high and dry, and it's important that the private efforts that are ongoing right now remain in place and that people get behind them, because this is who we are. We're not the people who leave our allies high and dry. We're not the people that leave them at the mercy of the Taliban. Because if we don't do something, the next time we have to go do anything, there's not going to be anyone standing next to us.
Yeah, and I think that that's a critical thing that people kind of forget. And I'm hopeful that the current administration doesn't forget that either, because we're going to be right back up against this in a number of years if we don't do something about it. But that really kind of leads me kind of the next question is like, what can people do to help support the elements that are pushing back against the Taliban right now?
So the effort right now is really focused on helping get people out of the country, and there are a number of people who are doing that. We've launched the GoFundMe page to try and gather some funds to help support those activities. Mm-hmm. Obviously, it's we need to be able to put people on the ground in places like the north. We have had some people evacuated through Pakistan, and all of these things have a logistics drain on them, and we need to be able to continue to support those activities to make sure that we get people out. While the talking heads on the TV will continue to tell you that we're getting people out and the Taliban is helping, it's not the reality on the ground. They continue to persecute people. They continue to seek out and hunt down the high-value targets that are out there, and those high-value targets are the people who worked with us. So we need everybody's help in order to go and do what we can to help those people in turn. So the GoFundMe page is a good place to start. If anybody can, anyone who's interested, if everyone gives a little, we can do a lot downrange.
That's right. Because we set up a GoFundMe called Operation Resilience and Compassion. So if you do go to GoFundMe and you look it up, you'll see that page set up. It's Operation Resilience and Compassion, and that really is there to help fund the efforts that we're talking about right now.
Yeah, that's correct. And folks, please go and take a look. If you care about helping the people in Afghanistan, I think that now is the time to stand up and be counted in that regard. There's still a desperate need out there. There are still people stranded internally within Afghanistan, and there are numbers of people who have now been dislocated and are sitting in the neighboring countries as well. They all need our help, and that disaster will continue to grow. And winter is not forgiving in Afghanistan, as I'm sure everybody knows.
Yeah, but that's also the opportunity to, I don't want to say strike now, but in order to help those people get to the point where they can do that coordinated operations and push back against the Taliban so they can set their own destiny, that support needs to be going in there right now.
Yeah, and, it was always an issue that had to be dealt with in Afghanistan for the last 20 years, that, the fighting season was definitely something controlled by the weather. Mm-hmm. At least this time around, I think it's going to work in our favor. And there'll be a little bit of a respite for those folks who are in those enclaves that are continuing to resist the Taliban. However, it also has the inverse effect, and that is supply is very difficult.
Yes.
And for all of the internally displaced people, food is going to become a problem. Shelter is already a problem. So there's a lot of humanitarian assistance that is needed to go into that country.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's kind of an all hands effort, right? And now with respect to kind of like the last major question here, with respect to the Taliban itself, obviously as spoils of war, they ended up with a tremendous amount of gear. How do we offset that?
Well, I think everybody needs to be realistic and look at our history. And what I tell people is, look, when we were attacked on 9/11, we weren't attacked with conventional weapons. We were attacked in a very unconventional way. And if we think that because we left all of this hardware in Afghanistan, that hardware is now going to turn up on our doorstep, we're delusional. However, we've left all that hardware in Afghanistan. We've allowed them to create the safe haven that they need and the space that they need in order to plan the next attack against America. Let's not forget the fact that we are still the great state. None of that went away. The circumstances that led to the attack on 9/11 have been recreated in Afghanistan, except we made them stronger. So they have less opposition and they have more free time to think up the next way that they can come after us.
That's right. And, and hopefully, over the course of the winter, the international community will start to see that there are those people pushing back and see the Taliban for their true colors.
Well, I think when you see women's rights protests in Afghanistan, in Kabul, within days of the Taliban taking over, it just shows the bravery and resilience of those people. For those women to walk down the street demanding their rights not be trampled on, and they were chased away at gunpoint. There were Taliban shooting at them.
Yep.
Women were beaten. There were all sorts of horrific acts going on, and these people were still prepared to stand up and do it. We need to be prepared to stand alongside them.
Yeah, and with that, I have to end the interview there, James. But listen, I appreciate all you do. Operation Resilience and Compassion, for everyone out there, please go and take a look. Thank you, James. I truly appreciate it. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll give you a call in a little bit. Okay.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
All right. Thanks so much. All right, there you go, Race for Heroes fans. I appreciate everyone being out there. Just let everyone know in a couple of weeks we have an event coming up at Roxborough Speedway down in Roxborough, North Carolina. It's going to be a drag racing event, and our friend Jimmy Sprecher will be down there doing his thing. So we're looking forward to that. And with that, Race for Heroes, I will see you next week. Thanks so much.